In college football 25, I have an 84% win percentage, which is good enough for the top 10 in the world, and it's because I do the same 5 things every single game. So if you guys want to see what 5 things I'm doing to get a win percentage like this, stick around after the intro. If you guys are looking for fast, cheap, reliable coins for your college football 25 team, check out my coin sponsors at MMOXP and use discount code MONEYSHOT for 5% off your order. Link in the description below.
The champ is here!
Welcome back, Money Team. This is Madden Money Shot, still out the college cheese as always. In today's video, I'm going to give you guys 5 things that can dramatically improve your win percentage if you do them every single game. Starting off with something you can do in your gameplay settings, but before I do, if you guys want to see more videos like this, please make sure to be a subscriber, hit the like button, let me know in the comment section. If you need more help, more money plays, you can download any of my ebooks instantly simply by clicking links in the description or the top pinned comment. Before I get started, every single one of these topics that I'm going to discuss was important enough that I made a full-length video going into more detail. So if you guys want to see more, I will have links on screen at the end of the video as well as in the description, but I'll also have them popping up in the top right corner as I'm talking about them. And the first one I want to go over is gameplay settings. Now when it comes to gameplay settings, there's a lot of things here that I think are really more preference based, but I'm going to give you my setup and my choices when it comes to a lot of these things you can change. Number one, I like to kick the ball. I don't want to receive the ball at the beginning of the game. I find that that's too much pressure. A lot of times you can have wasted possessions when a game first starts before you really learn what your opponent likes to do. So to me, it's a little bit better to have the ball in the second half when you've already had a chance to see what your opponent does, and you can make adjustments by the time that you're, by the time you're seeing what they're doing. I also find that my second choice I go with wind, just because I want to have the wind against my back when I'm kicking the ball. But ultimately, this is pretty much one of the most important things. I also like to go to tap and tap. I think it's a much easier control scheme when it comes to kicking than tap and hold. I'm currently using placement and accuracy, even though I did do a video a little while ago saying that I was using revamp passing. I'm going back and forth. I'm just going to keep it real. It's really difficult to find which one's best because they both have their upsides and downsides. I wish that they would combine the two, put the strengths of placement and accuracy and the strengths of revamp passing into one, but I don't know if we'll ever see that. I also like to use a small pass lead increase for deep passing, because if you use none, you get trapped in a box. Small is decent, medium is okay, and large I find is too much. I find the ball just goes way too far away from the reticle. I typically use 7 or 8 when it comes to reticle speed. When it comes to defensive auto flip, I like to have that off, because a lot of times I want to control where certain players are, and if it's on, you can't do that. Defensive ball hawk's another one I want to have that on. And I also find that defensive heat seeker assist is best to be on. I think this one's currently on before you do anything, but defensive heat seeker assist I think is off, and you have to turn that on. I also like to turn it up to 200%, because I find that increases the window to the point where a lot of times it'll pull me into tackles a lot easier. When it comes to switch stick, a lot of times I leave it on the slight, but I don't really notice that it really does anything on slight. So it's like slight or none is basically the same thing to me. But at the end of the day, I do think that switch stick is important. Don't turn this to the point where you're turning it off. My next tip is to set up your depth chart, which is something that you can always find an advantage doing. And I recently put out a video once again, so I have that popping up at the top right corner of the screen. When it comes to offensive skill position players, because you have most control, I think that physical attributes are probably the most important. Things like speed. You can see here my starting quarterback's 87 speed. You could also go for things like throw power, which is important depending on how you play, because once again, these are all preference once again. So if I'm throwing the ball deep downfield, maybe I go with this guy because he's got a better throw power. But you also got to worry about your accuracies. And this quarterback meets the threshold, which is 85 for all 3 accuracies. So obviously I don't change him very much. I run him a lot. When it comes to running backs, speed once again, wide receiver speed, and maybe height. As you can see here, we got a 96 speed guy just off the radar here at the 4th spot, which is not going to help me. So I'm going to switch him around. But if there's no real difference, because all these guys are 5'11", if there's no real difference in speed, a lot of times I'll go with height. If I have a guy who's 6'5", I have an opportunity to go up and get the ball over a lot of different guys. When it comes to tight ends, typically speed also once again, but if you have a really good blocking tight end, a lot of times you can, that to me is probably the second most important thing, especially if you run the ball a lot, to put a high graded blocking tight end in at least your second blocking spot. When it comes to linemen, if you have a lineman that's like starting with a 39 speed and you're getting beat around the edge, it's probably because he's too slow. It doesn't sound like it, but it's important to have guys with high speed across the offensive line. A lot of times, especially on the edge spots, on the left and right tackle, or if you're running a lot of pulling, trapping systems where you have guards and centers and stuff like that pulling, you're going to want to make sure they're fast so they can get out in front of your running back, or you won't be able to run the plays properly. But if you're running just straight downhill, then where they're just blocking the guy in front of them, speed doesn't necessarily matter as much because the guy they're blocking is right in front of them. But if you are running something where, say you're running a lot of toss plays and you got to get your guard out in front, you're going to need somebody that has some speed. So a guy that's like a 70 speed is going to work out way better than a 58 speed. Other than that, if you're running or passing a lot, just look at your pass blocking and run blocking grades. When it comes to defense, I definitely favor speed. I'm showing you guys a team that I use a lot. A lot of times I have a defensive tackle here who's all the way down here. He's not even a defensive end, but he's 83 speed. So I always put him in as a starter because once they get that shed, if they don't have speed, they're not going to catch the quarterback anyway, especially if we're playing against people that like to use, Alabama and Jalen Milroe and a lot of these speedy quarterbacks. It doesn't really matter if you get off the block, if you're not fast enough to chase the quarterback down anyway, or hold down the edge if you got a running back, basically running stretch plays. You need guys on the edge that have a lot of speed. When it comes to edge rushers, you also want to look for guys that have high power moves and high finesse moves, because this is what combats the pass blocking footwork and the pass blocking ratings for the offensive linemen. So if these are higher than theirs, they'll get off the block much quicker. Block shedding is obviously important as well, but that's typically more when it comes to run defense than actual pass defense. This is how these guys get off blocks. Since I run a lot of zone coverages, my second most important thing when it comes to linebackers, other than like awareness, because awareness is important at all positions because that kind of plays into how quickly whatever their abilities are activate. But I'll typically put all my speed guys in, and I've already vetted these guys to the point where I know that they all have pretty high zone coverages. So zone coverage, since I mostly run zone coverage, is going to be way more important to me. And you'll see how whenever I get over to this spot here, that we have guys that all have like the highest zone coverage rating, 78 zone coverage. When it comes to cornerbacks, once again, speed is king. So I'll typically move this guy up, but since I run zone coverages, I'm pretty much going to go the same route, looking for guys with high zone coverage and make sure they don't have like tanked awareness. Same thing with safeties. Now, substitutions can also go to the point where we want to do manual substitutions, especially on offense or defense when you have a certain position that you're trying to accentuate to the point where they're really going to make the play. Like I just put out an offense here from this particular formation where this 986 wheel route is the one-play touchdown every single time. So I want to make sure that I have my fastest guy there, which I currently don't, because my fastest guy is all the way over here. So I want to make sure that I take him out and make sure that I find a way to get him in the right spot so that I can maximize the effectiveness of this play. As you can see, it's really kind of jumping him around to the point where I have to make 2 substitutions before I can put him in the right spot. And then I want to make sure that I fill these guys back with my best receivers that I just took out, which can take a minute. Sometimes doing this, I actually have to call a timeout, but it just is what it is because ultimately it's worth it. And that same thing goes for defense. If I know that I'm running an edge blitz where a cornerback's blitzing, then I need to make sure that I have my fastest cornerbacks in that spot. In this scenario, I have a cornerback who's 97 speed in the name of Starling. I want to make sure that if I'm sending an edge blitz, that I have him coming off that edge, because that's going to be the best opportunity I have to get the quarterback quickly as possible and get as many sacks as possible. If I'm running this with an A6 speed cornerback or something like that, he's not nearly going to have the impact as it would if I have a 97 speed cornerback running this blitz. Next up, you want to set your audible plays, which you can do by going into the formation that you're going to use and hitting the left trigger or the L2 button. You have an option for a 5th play, because you can choose a play that you can go out with that's going to be different than the plays that you set in your audibles. Me personally, I typically start off with the cover 6. That's my favorite defense to run right now. It's just a really good matching coverage. But when it comes to setting my audible plays, I want to make sure they're all different from that. And I want to make sure they all have different strengths. I typically want to have a cover 4 palms because this is one of the better RPO defenses, but it's also one of the better run defenses. So if my opponent comes out in formation I think they're going to run, I can switch this really quickly and have a lot of success. I also really like the cover 3 Buzz Mabel, but I want it to be my base defense because it does have some deficiencies, it does have some holes. But I still want to have access to that because it's probably my second favorite coverage when it comes to pass defense. I also have the pinch 0, which is a really good blitz. Also, I use this as a run defense from time to time because I find that you can run commit from this, and a lot of times, especially if your opponent's in like a 3rd and 1 or 4th and inches or something like that, I find that I have a setup for this that can be a really good run defense for those situations, so I always keep it in my audibles. And then I also have a cover 3 cloud if I want to show my opponent as something different that is really difficult to hit a one-play touchdown against. But just know that you have, when you set this up on offense and defense, you want to have strengths in a bunch of different areas so that you have optionality when you get out on the field. When it comes to offense, we're going to do the exact same thing. We want to make sure that we have optionality, and we want to make sure that we have our main play as our 5th play. So I typically come out in the bench Z spot just about every single time, and based off of what I see on defense, then I'll change to some of my audible plays. But you want to have plays that can threaten inside and outside. With the speed option, I have an outside run. With the inside zone, I have an inside run. It's really that simple. If my opponent is spreading the defensive line, I'll go inside with the inside zone. If they're pinching the defensive line, I'll go outside with the speed option. Same thing when it comes to passing. I already said how I basically have my outside pass play, which is essentially the bench, although it's actually the one of the dig Z spots, or I'm not really sure where that is. It's the bench Z spot. That's my outside attack, where the other play is going to be my audibles. That's the mesh spot. That's going to be my inside attack. And you also want to have a play that you can threaten deep with. Typically a one-play touchdown play. I typically keep the slot post, which is a one-play touchdown against every single defense, in my audibles. Like I said, because you need to be able to threaten deep. You need to be able to threaten all three levels. You need to threaten short, which I can typically do with the mesh spot. You want to threaten deep, and you want to threaten mid, which the mid threaten play would be the bench C spot. So I really have passing to all three levels. I have the ability to run inside or outside, pass inside or outside, and I just have a lot of optionality when it comes to the plays that I'm setting in my Audible Plays. So now that we have our Audible Plays set up, the next thing we have to do is decide which play is best to run, and the only way you do that is by reading a defense, which you should be doing every single play. I'm not going to go over how to read a defense as far as it goes if you're running like a pro style offense. I already made a video about that, so I have that popping up in the top right corner, but I'm going to show you guys an easy way to read the defense that will basically open up your offense when it comes to college, which is if you're running gimmicky style plays or gimmicky style formations like this with a lot of RPOs and stuff like that, all you really have to do half the time is decide whether it's a man or a zone. Now, in this particular play, it looks like a man coverage based on the fact that all of our cornerbacks look like they're man aligned in front of the four corners, but I don't have to know what defense this is until the play starts. So since it looks like a man coverage, I know what plays beat man. The X receiver beats man, the RB receiver beats man, the drag, the Y receiver beats man, which is like kind of like a comeback route over the middle. All those routes beat man. So all I really have to do is determine whether it's man or zone, which I can do very easily once the play starts. So if it's a zone, I'm going to hit the B receiver. And since he's the only real zone option, I'm going to watch him as the play starts. As you can see here, the defender drops down right on him, so I know that it's a man coverage. I confirmed there's a man coverage, so I hit my next man option, which is going to be the drag. Now, I can also make these decisions when it comes to running the ball, but this is something I can make pre-snap, as I only really have one run play, but since I have 5 down linemen and only 4 guys rushing, I know that I could run this blast all game, and I'm going to take this every chance I can get, as I'm going to get a double team here and most likely get my best opportunity to just basically keep the chains moving by getting small runs over and over. As you can see here, once again, not enough guys in the box. I can switch over to the quarterback blast. This is a much easier way to read a defense. Now, one of the easiest ways to read a defense is by going with a RPO play. So on a play like this here, where I'm not really sure whether it's man or zone, because we don't have man alignment on the right side, this looks more like a matching coverage. I know that if it is a zone, I can hit the B receiver in the bunch where he's basically going to have like a screen. And if it's a man coverage, I know I can hit the slant. It's really that simple. Most RPO plays are designed this way, where half the field is a man beater, half the field is a zone beater, and you might have a running option. And that's typically how these plays are. So if you really don't know how to read a defense very well, just switch over to some RPO plays. On this play here, I just have to watch the B receiver once again. If they drop down on him, I can't go his way. If they don't drop down on him, I can go his way. If they drop down on him, I know it's a man coverage and I gotta hit the slant. It's really that simple. And it's designed to be that way. That's why they make RPOs that way. It's because it's supposed to be simple. So this is something here. If you're having issues reading a defense, just run more RPO plays. So I'm gonna end the video there, but if you guys want to learn more about any of the topics that I brought up, I made individual videos for every single one of them. I'll have them pop it up on screen, as well as links in the description as well. So just click the links, and until next time, thanks for watching, man. Much it out. Need more help or just want to show your support? Then head over to my Patreon and join my team, where you can get exclusive content like ebooks and bonus plays, as well as early access to my vids and more. Link in the description below.